Okay, just a quick video here before I go to work. I borrowed this from work. And I'm going to pull this steering wheel off. So, I had to put the bolt back in it because I gotta have somewhere to anchor this thing, and I didn't want to risk damaging the column since it's actually hollow. This is the first vehicle I've ever messed with that actually uses a bolt in the end of the column instead of a nut. I mean, I don't think there's any real significance to that, but for something like this, it doesn't make a difference since these things are designed to go against a solid shaft. Okay. So I did a little research. Again, I'm not a Honda guy. Honda boy racer, whatever the hell you want to call him. Excuse my camera work here. I gotta have two hands. There we go. Apparently most Hondas use the same steering wheel spec. Oops, that's not right. So they are roughly the 33 spline. I think there are some that are different slightly, but most Hondas are the same. I think some of the Integras and bigger stuff are different, but I did find a Grant steering wheel adapter for like a 90 that I'm hoping will just slide on this. If it will, then that will pretty well fix most of my issues with all this. I don't want to go too deep here because I don't want to push the bolts into that clock spring. Got to be careful with that clock spring. That thing may as well be made out of glass. I mean, I guess it doesn't matter if I didn't care about the cruise control, but I do. I think it's all CAN bus or whatever the hell Honda calls it. Oh, that bolt is turning. Okay, here we go. One of the negatives about having an iPhone is if you turn it, it will shut off recording. I think if you even shake the damn thing, it'll turn off recording. So as soon as I pop that loose, it stopped the camera. But I guess it doesn't really matter. So I got this straight up and down. I've got it marked. And we're going to pull it off, but I got to get these wires off from the clock spring. And it looks like it should unplug from right here, but I think I got to unplug it individually. So I'm going to do that. I'll be right back. All right. So here's your clock spring. And I mentioned it before when I did the steering column video, but I'll mention it again. So inside this thing is a strip that has very small wire filament in it, and it's coiled up. And so it's designed to be able to let you spin this without breaking a wire. So the worst thing it's going to do is tighten up a little or loosen up some. But should you like spin the steering wheel with it disconnected, it'll eventually run out of space and it'll rip the wires out. So you have to be very careful turning this thing, and you got to make damn sure that it's clocked in a neutral position. So like the middle of it. That way you don't go 3 turns and then hit the end and rip the wires out, where the other side you can go 6 turns. You know, it's got to be right in the middle. The other thing that looks like, so this is your cruise control wiring. I have to keep that. This is the horn, and it looks to me like it's just a simple ground. So you ground it, horn honks. That's a good thing, because if I were to go with one of these old Grant steering wheels or a Superior 500, they use a ground for the horn, so I could hook it right up and have it work. This is airbag wiring. This is going to get snipped off. So I probably need to put that back on. Maybe not. But one other happy little thing. So before I made mention, and I was worried because this is all magnesium aluminum alloy. Yeah, I don't know if you can weld it or not. However, that is steel. That is steel. So I can take this thing, cut it apart, you know, get all this off of that steel hub and weld that. I'd probably have it welded. I don't trust my welding skills enough, or my welder enough to, sorry welder, I don't trust it enough to bet my life on it, or the life of my family. So that can be removed from said steering wheel and welded into something else, some other steering wheel of some kind, and made to make work. That makes me incredibly happy, because that's going to make things a lot easier. Okay. And so, very soon I'll be on the hunt for an actual steering wheel. I want something classic that looks like it belongs in a Rambler. I mean, since I got the Rambler dash, you know, the seats and all this stuff are Honda, but everything up here is Rambler. I'd want something that looks like it fits the Rambler, especially trying to get away from the airbag and all that bullshit. But I mean, I have to live with this. This is a case of function over form, but the steering wheel is definitely form over function. So I'm going to go ahead really quick and pull the cruise control switch off. And I think that's all I can do. I gotta get to work here. So talk to you later. Hello, welcome to this Sunday's version of Lunchtime Arts and Crafts. So this is my Honda Civic steering wheel from the Rambler project, or Rambler project. And I'm guessing this is some kind of magnesium aluminum alloy. This is steel. This used to be here. But this will make a hell of an adapter, and this will make scrap metal. So the plan is to take this and have somebody weld it. I could weld it, but one, I don't think I could weld it without getting it too hot and actually melting the you know, the padding or the plastic on the steering wheel, the rubber on the steering wheel. And two, you know, a professional welder is definitely gonna give the penetration and stuff. So it's either I'm going to find a factory wheel, like the Rambler wheel, Ford wheel, Dodge wheel, whatever wheel, some classic old car wheel, and drill out the center here and put this down through the middle and then weld it. Or get like a Grant steering wheel, you know, the old 3-hole Superior or Grant, and weld it to the back of it with the little cover. That's probably actually what I'm going to do, because with that cover, I don't have anything here, but with that cover, I can screw the cruise control switches to it and have all that still working with the clock spring and all that. But that's in the very near future. So I have other projects to do. Okay, so just getting some angles kind of figured out here. And this is an issue. I've only got it held on with one bolt there. Uh-oh. There we go. Okay, so this isn't going quite as smoothly as I thought it would. So last night I just kind of got this tentatively put together. And it kind of works. Maybe. Problem is, there is not enough space in between the glass and the metal for this window regulator. And looking at it I mean, one, you've got, you know, here's the flat edge of the inside door, but then you've got these panels here that go in deeper, especially this one. And so I didn't really want to do it, but I did cut the middle of the Honda doors out, especially since they were junk. So I could cut this out and weld the Honda stuff in it, and all the holes would line up and everything. But even with that, I don't know for sure that it's all going to work. One big problem, maybe the biggest problem that I'm having, is the motor. So as the window comes down, this, you know, just wherever it's sitting, hits the glass. These cables aren't long enough for me to really go anywhere with it. It needs to be about right there. This really needs to be moved up. But as you can see, it would be right up against this piece, which is kind of where we want it, but still. I mean, this is also to the extreme, you know, outside the glass. You know, there's no room to go back in. So I could get in there and probably flatten this out a little, cut and weld it maybe, but it's really looking like I'm going to need to cut that out and weld the Honda parts in. But that's not really super important at the moment. What's more important is I got to work on the Mazda. So some of you who have been long-time members of my channel will remember this Mazda. It's an 83 Mazda B2000. The original owner, second owner, whatever he was, the guy that owned it in 1993, overheated it, blew the head gasket, had the head rebuilt, put it all back together, and couldn't get it to start. So it sat on a sand dune from 1993 until like 3 years ago when I bought it. It only had 74,000 miles on it. It has 80,000 now, which honestly isn't exactly true. It's probably more like 78, because these little bitty tires make the speedometer run a lot higher. But like everything else that I buy, so there have been many cars in my history that I have bought specifically to part out. Like, you know, I need an engine, or I want an engine out of something, and so I'll find something and I'll buy it and I'll make sure that it runs perfect before pulling the engine out. So I'll tune it all up and just make it just perfect. Especially if the tags are good on it, I'll run it around until the tags go out and then yank the engine out of it. And this truck is no exception. So I figured out what was wrong with it. It really wasn't anything big. And started tuning it up, swapped it to a Weber, got it running real good, and it turned out to be a really good running, driving truck. It actually drives better than my Courier, which has been all restored, and this one's all original. One of the reasons for that is this truck has the soft ride package. Has a 900-pound payload. What they did is they took one leaf out of the leaf spring and made the shackles 1 inch longer. So that truck's got an 1,800-pound payload. But, you know, it goes down the road straight. Steering is very light. Steering's kind of heavy on that, which I think is those wheels and 15-inch tires. But anyway, my original plan was to get it running perfect, pull the engine tranny out of it, swap it into the 81 Courier, put that engine and tranny in here, and then sell it as a driver. Or then, you know, maybe not go through that much trouble and just sell it as a roller so somebody could LS swap it and have a damn nice truck. Because as you see, the body is very straight. There are some little dents. As you can see, there's really no rust. This is the original paint. And I mean, it's just a good truck. It's never really been wrecked. I mean, this was broke. I could fix it. I just need to get in there with the sander and smooth it all out. You know, the hood's even very, very straight. Most of the time, I need to do a little more work on that. Anyway, most of the time they're bent in on this ridge here. This is still great. Windshield has a couple little pops, but other than that, it's okay. Now, he did hit a stump down low and bent up this fender pretty bad, and found this one at the junkyard the same color. And I'm pretty sure this dent was put into it by the forklift whenever they got the truck in, but that's the biggest dent in the whole truck. You know, there's kind of one there, one there. It did have a rust spot, and he fixed it, but yeah, that's got to get redone. And the only rust on the truck is from sitting on that sand dune for 10 years. The sand out there there's a lot of salt in it. There's actually a salt mine out here. And from it blowing up into the corners, it rusted out where the inner fender meets the bed floor. From all the sand piled up in the corners here. That's the only rust on it. So if you were going to C-notch this thing, you're going to cut that out anyway. I'm going to cut it out and patch it if I ever paint this, which I may end up doing. So yeah, it's for sale. You can buy it if you want. Right now, though, this is the only car I have to drive because Christy's driving the Cherokee. I will not drive the Courier or the Cricket when there's salt on the roads. And there is salt on the roads. There's salt all over this truck, which needs to be washed off. And I won't drive the Cricket when the roads are wet because the floorboards look like this. Correction, the passenger side floorboard looks like that. I haven't gotten around to fixing it yet. I have a piece of tin screwed down over the top of it, but water will still get up in there and get inside and rust out what's left of the back floors, whatever, make it worse. Make everything wet. I don't care. I'm not going to drive it in the rain. And I'm not going to drive it in the salt. Plus, with that Chinese carburetor on it, I got to work on it. I haven't worked on this car in years. So this is all I got to drive. Or I could drive Casper, but at 7.5, 8 miles to the gallon, I can't afford to drive Casper. Plus, the heater doesn't work in it right now, and the wiper doesn't work in it right now, and yeah. That car isn't safe to drive with the exhaust coming into it. That car's not legal, although I probably could, but I don't want to drive it in the salt. That one doesn't drive currently. Luke's car doesn't drive currently. The DeSoto doesn't drive. Grandpa's truck, I could make it drive, but I'm not going to drive it in the salt. Obviously, this doesn't go. The Volkswagen isn't going to go. So, because this thing sat for so long, when you get to a quarter tank, it runs out of gas. And if you get to a quarter tank and drive it, it will suck up crap into the pickup and plug the fuel line. I think what happened was the sock on the end of the pickup rotted and is floating in the gas, and so when the level gets down below, it'll suck up into the pickup. I don't usually let it get that low, but the other night when I was driving home, we had a 40-mile-an-hour headwind and I was struggling to maintain 65, and so when I got to hills and such, I noticed it was cutting out, leaning out on me. And so I need to get in there right now, pull the fuel line, and blow back through the fuel line and clear that. And since today is actually a really nice day, I need to do that. So I'm going to do that really quick, and then I'll pull the Rambler out. But today, I really wish I could have got started earlier, but today was a nice day. It's supposed to start raining tomorrow afternoon, and it's supposed to rain through Friday. So today might be the only day I really can get anything done. So I get this thing done, get it out of the way, get this door out of the back, and then I'll pull the Rambler out and get something done on that. So here's my little steering wheel hub, and here is the clock spring. I went ahead and cut the wires off for the airbag because they won't be used. So I've got this panel, this thing is supposed to go in between the steering wheel and the steering column. You know, of course, this is for old school stuff. Realistically, it just needs to fill around the plastic, which I'm not too worried about. What we need is to cover the clock spring. So I'm going to pick up a steering wheel here Thursday. It's kind of old and rusty, and we'll see how it looks, you know. I'm not looking for anything fancy anyway, but realistically, if this were welded to the back of the steering wheel, and then I would either have to weld this in between them, which I don't want to do because I don't think that would be strong enough, or cut this out and then weld this on after the fact. But I'm starting to think that that's not going to work anyway. I think just a disc of sheet metal, or hell, even plastic would be just enough to cover the clock spring. And that would be all I would need. And then, of course, these two pegs would get drilled into the steering wheel. And this could be a problem. I'm not sure. We'll see. Yeah, because I don't think this thing has to be clocked. I mean, if I turned it sideways, I think it would still be okay. I don't know. The other thing I need to do is measure out, which is kind of hard to do with one hand, the dish. So if this is the base of my steering wheel, so 7 inches would be in my gut, I think. Yeah, so we'll say 6 inches maximum. I think. Because the Honda wheel was I think 5 5/8 inches total. So let's see. Push this down. Oops, I hit the retract button. These are just cheap, crappy measuring tapes, but at the time, that's what I had. Okay. So yeah, so we'll say 5.5. And I think those Grant steering wheels have 3-something inches of dish, because the other problem you got to watch out for is these. You know, the steering wheel has to clear that. Has to clear that by a couple inches, really. That is roughly 2 inches. So 4 inches would give us plenty of clearance. Yeah, so let me do some research here real quick. So plastic just comes right up here to the edge. So realistically, just a flat piece of anything would work. I mean, hell, I could glue a piece of plastic to the clock spring itself, and that would hide it. I mean, it would come above it a little bit, but I mean, I don't even know that you'd be able to see it, to be honest with you. So I'm not going to worry about it. Like, I'm not going to stress it. I'm going to worry more about getting the steering wheel and getting this figured out, because this guy here might interfere with the third spoke. But we'll see. Well, it's starting to look like today's a bust. I really thought I had more time, but it's already started sprinkling, so it wasn't supposed to start till 6. Anyway, I did get to kind of messing with the window motors again, and I drilled the spot welds and took the little bracket off. And I mean, God, it's tight. I think part of the problem is you have the channel and you have these little plastic sliders, guides that go on the top of it, so you can't go too tight or those will hit. I did flatten the bracket a little bit, but by taking it and essentially going from 90s to 45s, it hits those things. So I think what I could do, one thing I didn't want to do was modify the regulators too much, because I want, if they ever burn out, I want to be able to go to any part store and buy the window regulator for a Honda Civic and just have it bolt right in. But it's not looking like that's going to work. Part of the other thing too is I need to make a bracket to attach the window regulator to the glass. And that is actually going to move it away a little bit. So I pretty well need to stop what I'm doing and do that first, and then I'll know where to set the regulator, at least give me a start. I looked at the rear window regulator, which is nowhere near as robust. I've got everything wrapped up and covered up out of the rain right now, so I can't really show you until the weather clears up. I don't know if I trust the rear to be strong enough, but it's not really any different as far as the spacing goes. I'd still have to modify it. So at the moment, we're at a standstill until I can figure out how I'm gonna set the regulator between the glass and the inner door. Because even if I cut out the inner door and put the Honda inner door in, there's still not enough room. I have an idea. I think if I weld a 6mm bolt to the regulator, I think that will give me just enough clearance so that those guides can slip past everything and the window won't be in a bind. So yeah, we're going to look into that. I'm going to head over to my buddy Gabe's shop and pick up the dashboard. He's got it all sandblasted. I'm going to go ahead and blast the glove box while I'm there. And he might even have a couple pieces of metal for me. I'll see if I can talk him out of it. But beyond that, I'm going to hit the road right now. And yeah, hopefully that'll be all I need. Be back later. Well, at least we got a little bit of something done today. Got the dashboard blasted. Open up a little hole there. That's where it was brazed, I think. So, gotta get on the body work. A little Bondo work here and there. And, you know, along all these edges. I gotta hit it with DA anyway. Especially this. This was done with coal slag. This was done with fine or very fine, extra fine sand. And you can see the difference in the texture. So this definitely needs to get hit with a DA. You got the back side of it. So you can see there, it's all clean. This is all going to get carpeted anyway, so I'm not really worried about little gaps and stuff. I'm going to go pull the hinge screws off of the 61. I'll be back. And that's going to do it. There's the rain. We're done. Okay. I'm going to stay in front of the rain here. I'm going to go ahead and weld up this hole and start doing a little bit of body work on it. I need to hit it with the DA, and then that'll kind of give me an idea of where these kind of rough spots are. And then I'm going to throw some filler down on it. Tonight, I need to go about an hour north and pick up a steering wheel for the Rambler. So I'm going to get started. All right, I had to make a few little adjustments here. This glove box is basically a joke. I mean, it's enough for you to put your owner's manual and your registration and stuff in there, but yeah, I had to cut up the plastic piece on my Classic when I put air conditioning in it too. Basically, I had to give up this whole side of it. Anyway, so right now I need to go ahead and hit this with the grinder, get it down, and then I'm going to DA all this. And I may or may not mix up some filler. I'm getting short on time here, so we'll see. I was going to go ahead and fill in these corners, but you can't even see it, so I'm not going to worry about it. All right, time to get busy. Okay, here we are. I spent the evening hauling ass up north. I bought this crappy steering wheel. It's pretty rusty. It's all right. I can sandblast it and paint it. Doesn't matter. So I went ahead, I got this welded on. I'm not worried about it coming loose. I opened up the hole here. It doesn't look real pretty, but it doesn't matter. You're not going to be able to see it anyway. Okay, so what I'm going to have to do is drill the 2 holes for the alignment pegs there. No big deal. But that is a big deal. But I think what I can do is heat it up and bend it down. So if I can do that, it'll clear the steering wheel. And I'll be able to run the wires. There we go. I'll be able to run the wires over here to the cruise control switch, which I'm not really sure where I put it. And then the horn button. I can just make something. No big deal. And so this should be basically right up against the back here. And I may have to grind the weld a little, but I think we'll be okay. I definitely got penetration. I cranked that thing up, so not worried about that. All right, so I'm going to go find my propane torch. So that didn't work out anywhere near where I'd like it to be. Even if I end up losing the clock spring, I mean, hopefully I can mount the cruise control switch somewhere, you know, on the column, side of the column there, you know, something. It's not the end of the world. It'd just be kind of neat to mount the switches to the steering wheel like they were in Honda. But I'm going to go in. It's past my dinner time. And we'll get that wrapped up soon.